The smoke alarm starts beeping. Dad is standing in the kitchen. He is holding a big spoon. He is smiling. But something smells very, very bad. It's fine, he says. It's almost ready. He looks at the pan. The bottom of the pan is black. The food inside is dark brown. Very dark brown. Outside, someone is knocking at the front door. Dad looks at the door. He looks at the pan. He looks at the door again. "No," he whispers. "Not now." He runs to the window. He looks outside. The neighbor is standing at the door. He has 2 empty plates in his hands. And his wife is right behind him. She is also holding an empty plate. Dad looks back at the pan. This is not good. It all started 3 hours earlier. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon. Dad was sitting on the sofa. He was reading a newspaper. The house was clean and warm. His daughter, Emma, was at the kitchen table. She was doing her homework. Her little brother, Leo, was playing on the floor with his toy car. Everything was very calm. Then Dad put down the newspaper. He stood up slowly. He stretched his arms. He looked at the kitchen. "I have a great idea," he said.
Emma looked up from her homework. "What idea?" she asked.
"Tonight, I am going to cook dinner for everyone."
Emma blinked. Leo stopped playing with his car. "You?"
"Yes, me." He put his hands on his hips. He looked very proud.
"Dad," Emma said carefully, "you never cook."
"That is not true," Dad said. "I cook sometimes."
"You made eggs last month," Leo said.
"They were green." "They were not green," Dad said. "They were. Almost green." Emma and Leo looked at each other. "I am going to cook a special dinner tonight," Dad said. "Pasta with sauce and vegetables." He walked to the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator. He looked inside for a long time.
"We have pasta," he said. "We have tomatoes. We have some."
He took out a bag of pasta. He put it on the kitchen table. He took out a bottle of olive oil. He put that on the table too. Then he took out a small bag of herbs. He read the bag carefully. "Basil," he said. "Perfect, perfect."
Emma watched him from the table. She was not writing anymore. She was watching Dad very carefully. "Dad," she said, "do you want me to help?"
"No, no," Dad said. He waved his hand. "I am going to do this alone."
"I want to surprise everyone."
"Okay," Emma said slowly. But she did not go back to her homework. She kept watching.
Dad started cooking. He put a big pot on the stove. He poured water into the pot.
He turned the heat on. Then he got a second pan. A wide, flat pan.
He put it on the stove too. He poured olive oil into the pan. He turned that heat on as well.
See? He said to no one. Easy.
He started chopping the tomatoes. He was not a very fast chopper.
Small pieces, big pieces. Some pieces fell on the floor. He did not notice. Leo walked over. He looked at the tomatoes on the floor. Dad, some tomatoes fell down, he said. It's fine, Dad said. The rest are in the pan.
He put all the tomatoes into the hot pan. The oil was already very hot.
The tomatoes hit the oil. Splash! Hot oil jumped everywhere. Dad jumped back.
Dad! Emma stood up.
I'm fine, Dad said. He wiped his hand on his shirt.
He looked at the pan. The tomatoes were sizzling loudly. The oil was still jumping a little. Dad stirred the tomatoes with a spoon. He stirred slowly. He stirred for a long time. Then he opened the bag of pasta. He looked at the boiling water. The water was not boiling yet. He looked at it. He waited. He looked again. He looked again. Come on, he said to the water.
Leo sat down next to the stove. He watched the pot. Why are you talking to the water, Dad? He asked. I am encouraging it, Dad said.
Emma sat back down at the table, but she still did not open her homework. She was listening to the sounds from the kitchen.
The tomatoes were still sizzling. The water was getting warm.
Dad opened the herb bag. He looked inside. He took a pinch of herbs. He dropped it into the pan.
Then he looked at the bag again. He thought for a moment. He dropped in more herbs. A lot more. The more herbs, the better, he said. That is what good cooks always say.
Emma looked up. She did not say anything.
The water started to boil. Dad saw it. Aha, he said. He picked up the bag of pasta. He poured all of it into the pot. Every single piece.
The pot was very full now. Pasta pieces were trying to escape over the edge.
Dad pushed them down with a spoon. He pushed hard. Some pasta fell on the stove. It's fine, Dad said. The important pasta is inside.
He went back to the tomato pan. He stirred again. He stirred and stirred.
The smell was getting stronger. Emma sniffed the air. Dad, she said, is something burning?
No, Dad said. That is just the herbs.
It smells like burning herbs, Emma said.
It is supposed to smell like that, Dad said. He stirred a little faster.
But at the bottom of the pan, something was getting very dark. The tomatoes were sticking to the pan.
The herbs were getting too brown. Dad did not see this. He was stirring the pasta. He tasted a piece of pasta from the pot. He chewed slowly. Almost ready, he said.
He went back to the tomato pan. He stirred once. He looked at the bottom. He stopped. He lifted the spoon. Something black and sticky came up with it. He looked at it for a long time. "It's fine," he said. But his voice was a little smaller now. He stirred faster. He scraped the bottom. More black bits.
The smoke was starting now. Just a little. Very thin smoke, rising from the pan.
Emma stood up. She walked to the kitchen door. She looked at the pan. Her eyes went wide. "Dad," she said carefully, "the sauce is burning."
It is not burning, Dad said. It is caramelizing. What does caramelizing mean? Leo asked. It means, Dad looked at the pan. It means it is supposed to look like this.
Emma looked at the dark brown sauce. She looked at the black bits on the spoon. She looked at Dad. She went back to the table. She sat down. She picked up her pen. But she didn't write anything. She just waited. There was one thing Emma had not told Dad yet. That morning, she had seen the neighbor outside. She had waved, "Hello." The neighbor had asked about dinner. Emma had said,
Dad is making his special dinner tonight.
she had meant it as something funny. She had not meant it as an invitation. But the neighbor had smiled a big smile, and Emma had not thought about it again. Until now.
Dad turned down the heat a little. He looked at the sauce. He stirred it again.
The sauce was very dark now, but it was still sauce. It was not on fire. This was a good sign. He tasted a small spoon of the sauce. His face did not move. He held the face for a long time. Then he swallowed.
Interesting, he said. Is it good? Leo asked.
It has a very strong flavor, Dad said. It is very deep.
Deep like what? Leo asked.
Deep like the bottom of a pan, Emma said quietly from the table.
Emma, Dad said, please do not comment on things you haven't tasted.
Emma put her pen down. She walked to the kitchen. Dad held out the spoon. Emma tasted one small drop. Her face went very still. "It is fine," she said. Her voice was strange.
I told you, Dad said.
"Where is the water?" Emma said quickly. She walked to the sink and drank from the tap.
Leo ran over. I want to try. No, Emma and Dad said at the same time.
Leo stopped.
Dad stirred the sauce one more time. He decided to add something to fix the taste.
He opened the kitchen cupboard. He took out a bottle of tomato sauce from a jar. He poured some in.
He stirred again. He tasted again. His face moved this time, a tiny bit. Still not great.
He went back to the cupboard. He took out the bag of fresh herbs. He put a lot on top of the sauce. Green herbs on top of the dark sauce.
Presentation, he said. Very important.
He also poured some more olive oil on top to make it look shiny.
The pasta was done. He drained it. He put it in a big bowl.
He put the sauce on top. He added more herbs. He put the bowl in the middle of the table.
He stepped back and looked at it. It looked. Okay? If you didn't smell it.
And if you didn't look too closely at the bottom parts. Perfect, Dad said.
Emma looked at the bowl. She looked at Dad. She opened her mouth to say something.
Then they heard it. Knock, knock, knock. All three of them looked at the front door. Who is that? Leo said. Dad walked to the door. He opened it. The neighbor, Mr. Park, was standing outside. He had 2 empty plates. His wife, Mrs. Park, was behind him.
She also had an empty plate. They were both smiling.
Good evening, Mr. Park said. We are so excited.
Dad looked at the plates. He looked at their smiles.
Excited about what?
Dad said.
The special dinner, Mr. Park said. Your daughter told us this morning. She said you are making your special dinner tonight.
Dad turned very slowly and looked at Emma. Emma looked at the floor.
The special dinner, Dad said.
Yes, Mr. Park said happily. We have been looking forward to it all day. We did not cook anything. He held up the empty plates. We came ready, he said.
Dad stood at the door. He smiled. It was a very large smile, a very stiff smile.
Please, he said, come in. Mr. and Mrs. Park came inside. They sat down at the kitchen table. They put their empty plates in front of them. They looked at the big bowl of pasta in the middle.
It smells very interesting.
Thank you, Dad said. He was still smiling. Emma and Leo sat down too. Emma was looking at the table. Leo was looking at the bowl. Dad picked up the pasta bowl. He walked around the table. He put pasta on everyone's plate.
Pasta for Mr. Park. Pasta for Mrs. Park. Pasta for Emma.
Pasta for Leo.
He sat down. He put pasta on his own plate. Everyone looked at their plates.
The pasta was there. The dark sauce was on top. Some green herbs were scattered around.
There was a small pool of oil around the edges. It looks very colorful, Mrs. Park said.
Thank you, Dad said.
Mr. Park picked up his fork. He twisted some pasta around it. He brought it to his mouth. He took a bite. He chewed. He chewed again and again. The table was very quiet.
Leo was watching Mr. Park's face very closely.
Mr. Park swallowed. He put his fork down. He picked up his glass of water. He drank the whole glass.
He put the glass down. He smiled. Very interesting flavor, he said.
Very deep, Emma said quickly.
Dad looked at her.
I will try mine, Mrs. Park said. She took a small bite. A very small bite.
The smallest possible bite. She chewed 3 times. She swallowed very fast. She reached for her water, too.
Dad looked at his own plate. He twirled some pasta. He put it in his mouth. His face went very still.
Leo put one small piece in his mouth. He chewed once. He put his fork down.
He pushed his plate a little bit away from himself. Just a little bit. Very slowly, hoping no one would notice. The whole table was quiet. The pasta was not on fire. The pasta was not dangerous. But the pasta was very much burned.
And also very much over-herbed. And also very oily. And also a little bit salty.
And also something else that was hard to describe. The smoke alarm chose this exact moment to start beeping again. Dad stood up. He waved a towel at the smoke alarm. He fanned it until it stopped. He sat back down. Everyone was looking at him. He cleared his throat. I may have, he started. But then Mr. Park did something unexpected. He laughed. Not a polite laugh, a big, real laugh. Everyone looked at him. I'm sorry, Mr. Park said. He wiped his eye.
I'm sorry. I have to be honest. This is very brave cooking.
Brave? Dad said.
Very brave, Mr. Park said. Because last week, he started laughing again. Last week I tried to make my wife's birthday cake. Mrs. Park covered her face.
Tell them, she said.
I burned it, Mr. Park said. I burned the whole cake.
It was completely black. Black on every side. I tried to cut it and the knife went. He made a sound like breaking glass.
Now Emma started laughing.
What did you do? Leo asked.
I put a lot of cream on top, Mr. Park said. I said it was chocolate cake.
Was it chocolate? Leo asked.
It was burnt, Mr. Park said. Everyone laughed.
Dad looked around the table. He looked at the pasta. He looked at his guests. He looked at Emma. He looked at Leo. And slowly, the big, stiff smile became a real one. Okay, Dad said. The dinner is burned.
Very burned, Emma said.
Thank you, Dad said. Very burned. He looked at Mr. Park. Do you want to order noodles? Dad said.
Yes, Mr. Park said immediately. Very much yes.
I know a good noodle place, Mrs. Park said. She was already taking out her phone.
Wait, Leo said. He held up one finger. He leaned forward and took one more bite of the burned pasta. He chewed carefully. He thought about it. Everyone waited.
Order the noodles, Leo said. Everyone laughed again.
20 minutes later, the noodles arrived. Dad paid for them. He carried all the bags to the living room. He put them on the coffee table. Everyone sat on the floor around the coffee table. Mr. Park sat next to Dad. Mrs. Park sat next to Emma. Leo sat in the middle. They opened the noodle boxes. Steam came out. It smelled very, very good. They ate and talked.
Emma told the story of the tomatoes on the floor.
Mr. Park told the story of the birthday cake.
Mrs. Park told the story of the time she tried to bake bread, and the bread grew too big and fell out of the oven.
Dad told the story of the time he tried to make soup and forgot to put the lid on the blender.
What happened? Leo asked.
There was soup on the ceiling, Dad said.
The ceiling? Leo said.
For 3 days, Dad said. Your mom was very patient. Leo looked at the ceiling of the living room. He looked very carefully.
I don't see soup, he said.
This is a different house, Emma said.
Leo nodded. He went back to his noodles.
Later that night, after the Parks had gone home, Emma helped Dad wash the dishes.
The burned pan was the hardest. Dad scrubbed and scrubbed.
Sorry about the dinner, Emma said.
Don't be sorry, Dad said. It's my fault for not cooking for many years and then expecting a perfect result.
He scrubbed the pan. Some black bits came off. Also, he said, it's your fault for telling the neighbor.
Emma bit her lip. I didn't mean to invite them, she said. I just said you were cooking.
Next time, Dad said, maybe don't tell the neighbors when I am cooking.
Or, Emma said, you could practice first.
Dad thought about this. Yes, he said. Or I could practice first.
He put the pan down. He looked at it. The bottom was still a little dark, but most of the black was gone. Next time, Dad said, I will only make tea.
Emma smiled. You can't burn tea, she said.
Dad looked at her. He did not say anything. He just picked up the pan and went back to scrubbing.
Emma laughed. She picked up a clean dish. She started drying it.
In the living room, Leo was already asleep on the sofa. His noodle box was empty. A small piece of green herb from the burned pasta was still on his shirt.
Emma looked at him. She looked at Dad.
She thought about the dinner, the burned sauce, the smoke alarm, the neighbor at the door with the empty plates, Mr. Park's laugh, the noodles on the coffee table, Dad's story about the soup on the ceiling.
The dinner had been a disaster, but the evening had been very, very good.
Dad dried his hands on a towel. He turned off the kitchen light. He walked to the living room. He looked at Leo sleeping on the sofa.
He picked up a small blanket. He put it over Leo. He tucked it in gently. Leo moved a little, but he did not wake up.
Dad stood there for a moment. Emma came and stood next to him. They looked at Leo.
Dad, Emma said quietly.
Yes? Dad said.
The dinner was terrible,
Yes, Dad said.
but it was a good night.
Dad looked at Leo. He looked at the empty noodle boxes. He looked at the place on the floor where Mr. Park had been sitting and laughing. Yes, Dad said. He smiled. It was a very good night.
Emma went to her room. Dad turned off the living room light.
He sat for just a moment in the quiet dark. Then, he stood up.
He went to the kitchen.
He looked at the stove. He thought for a moment.
He opened the cupboard. He took out a box of tea bags. He boiled some water. He made 2 cups of tea. He looked at them. He smelled them. He tasted one. It was fine. Actually, it was very good.
He smiled. Tea he could do. He carried both cups down the hall. He knocked gently on Emma's door. "Tea?" he said.
The door opened. Emma looked at the cups. She took one. "Don't burn it," she said.
I didn't burn it, Dad said. I am excellent at tea.
Emma sipped it. She nodded slowly. "You are actually excellent at tea," she said.
Dad smiled. He leaned against the doorframe. He held his warm cup. Down the hall, Leo was still sleeping. Outside, the street was quiet. The kitchen was clean. The pan was a little bit damaged, but only a little bit. Everything else was perfect.